Welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today we'll be drawing together using graphite with your graphite drawing pencils, cotton swab, kneaded eraser, some tracing paper, anything you think you need to draw with. Have it right handy. Thanks for joining me on this journey of drawing. Hope you enjoy it. And remember, art makes life better.
Okay, so the first thing we do is what I call the layout. We're going to do a basis of composition. We're going to put things where we want them, try to get them as big as we can get them and still look good. So when we start drawing, you're going to draw like this. You're going to hold your pencil like this. It's sort of like if you got your pencil on your page there and you pick it up like you're showing it to somebody. Hey, look at my pencil. That's how you draw, and you draw with the side of your pencil. So there's basically 4 or 5 reasons why we do it this way. First of all, the side of your pencil you can never press really hard. Second thing is it's faster. You draw better with your elbow and your shoulder than you do with your wrist. And so this is much faster. You know, one line like that, you can get a nice smooth line. You can do really nice circles this way. And it's superficial. It's on the surface. It never grinds it in. I don't know if you've ever drawn like this. And you draw a line, you go, oh, that's not in the right place, so you erase it. And then it's never really truly gone. And then as you draw over the top of it, it comes back. You ever done that? Oh, I hate that. So this way alleviates that. You don't ever have to worry about this. Okay? So all that stuff that I just drew, I can take my kneaded eraser, I can get rid of it completely because it's on the surface. It's never ground in. No one will ever know that it's there. So the first thing I want to do is just say, where do I want that monkey's head? And I want it fairly well to the top. So I might put a little arch there, just say this is kind of where the top of his head goes, somewhere down in there. And if you look at the angle between his eyebrows, his chin, his lip there, and you can just kind of draw that angle down and say that's kind of where my angle goes. And then his hand is over here. A good composition comes close to or touches 3 of the 4 sides of your paper. And so I'm going to have his back of his head actually touching my paper over there. And his wrist kind of come down and maybe give yourself just a little bit of space on that left side. His hand, if you think of his hand, if you kind of squint your eyes and you think of his hand like an oval, it's about that big. And we're not worried about the fingers or anything right now. It's about like that. His head is kind of an oval too. You can put that in. His ear is definitely kind of an egg shape. You can put that in. There's the curve of his neck. Look at the negative space between his neck, his wrist, his arm. Try to draw in that negative space. It's about like that. These are simple shapes, and all I'm doing is trying to figure out where I put everything and how big it's supposed to be. Try to make it large. We are not going to draw a hard line around everything either. And so we're just going to let the edges take care of themselves. I just want to point out a couple of things. Look at his lip right there, how light it is. There's parts of that lip that get lost in the background. And a little bit over here, maybe a little bit on his brow of his eye there, and his other eyelid right there. This is very dark, so we'll keep that going. But if you lose an edge like this, that's okay. Sometimes it's nice to lose it. When we get into ink, we're going to be talking about subliminal line, but you use that all the time. So we'll just let it just go. I don't see it, don't draw it. If you don't see it, don't draw it. Okay? So all those edges, we're just going to let them go. So now I've got it about the size I want it. I'm going to start doing a little bit of shading. I'm just going to start out with his head. His head is fairly dark. So I'm just going to shade that in with the side of my pencil. Look how far back on this pencil I am. Everything here is superficial. It stays on the surface. So I'm just doing a little bit of shading and go around his head here, right in front of his ear. Just a little shading with the side of my pencil. I'm not going really dark. This is that number 2 pencil, so it's never really going to go too dark. I can even kind of shade in their little areas around his fingers. So there's a little finger right there. I'm not drawing the finger, I'm shading. So all those little shades that you see in there, just draw those in. Don't draw details. Don't worry about fingernails or wrinkles or hair or anything. Just dark shapes. Dark and light. Light's already there. All you have to worry about is the dark. Now, if this isn't in the right place, we can always move it. Because it's superficial, it's on the surface. Just dark areas. Whatever looks dark to you, just throw it in with the side of your pencil. Don't worry about edges. They will come. You can already see what's happening. The monkey's kind of starting to come through. Drawing's kind of like a camera where you kind of start focusing it, focus, and getting the details in. But at first, it should be kind of soft and fuzzy. I can already see I need to adjust the shape of his ear, and that's okay. Just the dark shapes. What this does too, in putting in the dark shapes, it helps you to see your proportions. Helps you to see if everything is in the right place or not. And so far, we haven't erased anything. But we still can, because drawing like this means it's on the surface. Everything that we've drawn so far can be easily erased. So last time we talked about right brain, left brain. Your right brain is short-term memory. So if you want to improve your short-term memory, draw. Left brain is long-term memory. And the cool thing is between drawing and looking at proportions and things like that, your right and your left brain are working. And you're improving both long-term and short-term memories. And I think that's cool. So then, once you get to the point where you say, okay, things are starting to look about right, you can use your eraser to just clean up things. You can clean up edges. You can say, oh, you know what, that ear is too small. I need to make it a little bit bigger. So you can use your eraser to just pull some things out. You want to pinch that eraser often. Just because when you start, you can see what's happening here. This is the graphite coming off on my kneaded eraser. In order to clean it, you just do this, and then that cleans it. That's makes it nice and able to absorb more graphite. And you just keep going. You just kind of keep going until you're happy with it. Look at the proportions. One thing that you do when proportioning is I always look at edges, look at things. For example, where his nose is, nose comes down there. You go straight across from his nose, that's about where the top of his ear is. And same thing with the bottom lobe. You come down to that first finger and you come straight across, that's about where the bottom lobe is. So I'm looking at mine thinking, okay, that ear is too big. I need to go smaller. So I can make it go smaller. Or maybe it needs to move, needs to be up a little higher. I can do that too. My mouth is in the wrong place. It needs to go down this way a little bit further. I'm just going to use this line as my mouth. Use my eraser to get that edge. Huh. Now, if I had drawn a line around everything, that would be harder to get rid of. Just keep adjusting until you're happy with what you got. Or I should say, until you're satisfied with what you got. Because technically, who do you draw for? Who do you draw for? Yourself, yeah. It's yourself that really needs to be satisfied. When you're all done, other people get to enjoy that as well. But to start with, it's just yourself. There are times when I draw real well, and other times when I struggle through it. I guess it's like anything else when you play a sport or something. You know, some days you're right on, and other days it's like you can't get the ball to go in the right place. You've all experienced that, right? But you have this kind of ghosty image. This is proportioning. This is how you get it. And nothing here is perfect. And just realize it's like anything else. You never do it right the first time. It takes practice. It takes adjustment. That's life. That's the way it is. So then what I want to do is I want to take my cotton swab. I want to just blend some things. And I want to pick up graphite and put it on my cotton swab. So I'm going to just start blending. And the edges are going to get kind of soft. And that's kind of what you want because he's kind of fuzzy anyway. So you want some soft kind of edges. And we're just going to let the edges take care of themselves. I'm just going to blend a little bit here. I want to get as much graphite as I can to come off onto my cotton swab. I get asked all the time, how do you make your stuff so smooth? Well, this is it. You start blending from the beginning, and the more you layer into it, the more you add onto it, the smoother and nicer it gets. You can do little circles if you want. You can go back and forth. However, it's comfortable to you. Notice that we haven't put our hand down yet. Sometimes you get that graphite on your hand here, and it smears it. It also smears your picture, and so you lose all that nice contrast that you've developed. This way, it keeps your hand up off the paper. You don't have to smear it. Sometimes in people, you have little wrinkles. And you have these in these little chimpanzees too, and the monkey here. And you can do that with your cotton swab. So you can go in and just do a little wrinkle. Very soft and subtle. Even down his nose here, there's all these little wrinkles. If I take this cotton swab and just put a little bit of that down in there like this, all of a sudden I've created these little wrinkles, and they're easy to get. And they're soft. Once you get some graphite on that cotton swab, you can draw with it. So like right here, I can draw a little bit in there. Just very light, soft tones. I don't know if you've ever tried to do all these soft tones with a pencil, but it takes forever. This way, it's fast. I'm not really pressing too hard either with this cotton swab. There's no reason. This also is helping me to get my proportions, to get everything to kind of line up right. Because once I'm done here, it's still on the surface. I can erase all this. Nothing is ground in yet. And really, there's nothing white on him. I mean, there's some areas that are very, very light, but nothing's really white. And so you could take that cotton swab and get some of those light tones that are nigh on impossible with the pencil alone. The farther you get away from the face, the more sketchy you can be too. And when you're done there, you sit back, you analyze it again. You kind of look at it and go, okay, is everything now in about the right place? Do I need to erase something? Which you still can. That eraser can just pick up any of that. Nothing is ground in completely. Try just taking your kneaded eraser. There's some kind of little spots around his forehead there, on his eyebrow. You can just take your kneaded eraser and just touch it and get that texture in there. His ear, wherever you feel like you need a little light. Cleans up the edges. Once you've kind of finished all your light tones with that number 2 pencil, that yellow pencil, this is called an HB in the art field. I don't know if you've ever had a set of pencils. You can buy 12 or so art pencils, anything from F's and H's on the way down to B's. Some of them even get up to a 8 or 9B, which are really dark. Technically, if you have a really dark pencil and a medium pencil like this one, you don't need any of the light ones. You know, how do you draw light? If you're drawing with a number 2 pencil, how do you make something go really light? You just don't press as hard, right? And if you want it darker, you press a little harder. Trouble is with this number 2 lead, it doesn't go really dark. So in order to really make things go dark, to increase your contrast, to really make it look good, you need a dark pencil. And on the end of your pencil, it'll say 6B. That's about as dark as graphite goes. There are some pencils that add little polymers to them and things like that to make them go a little darker. But we're just pure graphite today. So just a 6B pencil. And now I'm going to switch over to that. I'm going to pretty much finish everything out with that 6B pencil. That number 2 pencil, I can use it again, but this is good. This is going to be good for me. So I'm going to do the same thing I just did, is I'm going to find those really dark areas, go back into it, and really darken up some things. Now, if you're like me, I love detail. So sometimes I'll just go in and start detailing somewhere. Usually the eyes. I'll start with the eyes. So I might want to do that in this little picture here. Might go in and say, I'm going to make that eye really dark. So I'm going to go in and just darken in that area. You can use the side of your pencil like this, or when you're doing detail, you can flip up like this. But if you flip up like this and you have a habit of putting your hand down on your paper, you may want to take another piece of paper or a piece of tracing paper or something like that. Put it down and then put your hand on it. That way you don't smear it. Or you can just keep it up off the paper like this. So maybe I'm going to just kind of try that. I'm going to do just little kind of zigzaggy or circular shapes where it's really dark. And if it's light, I'm just going to skip that area. And notice how that just made that pop. It made it just come right through. I'm not concerned about edges. They'll take care of themselves. Now I'm just picking up some of the darkest areas and just shading those in. On the edges, your edges become very important, especially when you're dealing with feathers or hair, fur, whatever. So our little guy here, he has some fuzzy head. There's a little line called a feathered line. And a feathered line is where you kind of drop your pencil in and give it a little flick. Like this. And this is the edge I want to get. Let me zoom into that so you can see it. So I'm just going to go in, pick out some of those darker areas, and on the edges, I'm going to use that feathered line. It's a little flick. And that'll make it look like hair. Inside here, I don't need that little flick, even though I can see it. And I suppose if you want to, you could use it. But just that little flicky feathered line. Some go one way, some go the other. And I'm just kind of flicking with the side of my pencil. When I want to draw heavy or darker, I choke up. Sometimes I'll even put my finger on top of the lead so I can really press down on there. That darkness is what's going to make our object, whatever it is, in this case our chimpanzee, and make him pop. Make him look like he's coming off the page. And I might have to go back over this several times before I get it as dark as I want it. Try to keep your contrast going, so the darks and lights in there, you want that light to stay. Got to remember what my object looks like long enough to get it onto the page. Some of those little darker wrinkles in his face there, just going to zigzag through those, just little tiny lines, because I can always use my kneaded or my cotton swab to smear those out. And I'm not doing full lines, just shapes of dark and light. I kind of put my pencil on there and just kind of shake. However you want to do it. If you want to do little circles, you can do little circles too. The important thing is just how do you get that graphite on the page? Corners of the mouth are usually darker, so whether you're doing animals or humans or monkeys, should say chimpanzees. I don't even think about fingers when I'm doing fingers. It's just shapes of dark and light. And if you draw the shapes of dark and light about where they're supposed to go, your object comes through, whatever it is. Use some of that feathered line when I'm coming down with the hair that comes out. You just feather it. Cool thing too is your pencil gets sharpened this way. You get a nice sharp point. Therefore, when you finally do go back into it and do any little tight details, depending on what you want to do, you get a nice sharp point. So once you get to that point too, and you think, okay, is that working out? Smear it again. Get as much on your cotton swab as you can. That's going to soften that as well. And my little edges, I can take and do a feathered line with my cotton swab and get that nice soft fuzzy edge there. This works for chimpanzees and animals and people. You're starting to get a lot of graphite on that cotton swab. So you can draw with that cotton swab. Like when I come down in to do these wrinkles, you come across and here's a little wrinkle, another wrinkle. I can draw with my cotton swab. And it's soft and fuzzy. I don't have to worry about hard lines. So now you can draw with your cotton swab. Isn't that cool? Some of those little textures, like the little wrinkles around his face, you can come back in with your kneaded eraser and touch in between those. That'll lighten those up and give it that kind of bumpy effect. Those would be the easiest wrinkles you've ever drawn. You don't have to go over everything when you blend it. You can, if you like a texture that your pencil's giving you, you can just keep it. You don't have to go back over it. You don't have to take it out. You don't have to smooth it out. If you like that texture, leave it. Ears are a kind of a funny thing. A lot of people don't like their ears. I asked a plastic surgeon once, I said, what is the #1 thing that you change for people because they don't like it? Anybody know? Noses, yeah. And the #2 is ears. Ears and lips. I don't know. I think noses are unique, you know. There are people that I'll sit there, stare at their nose, and just go, oh, I'd love to draw that nose. That is the most amazing nose. So I'm just using my cotton swab now to get those little parts of the ear that are kind of smooth and soft. Just the cotton swab. And if you think, well, I'm running out of graphite, go to a dark place, pick up some graphite, and then you can go back into the ear or wherever you are and lay it out. It's almost like painting, like taking some graphite from one place and moving it into another. One guy told me that ever since cell phones and selfies, most people have really hated their noses because they say their noses are big. But in reality, when you take a picture of yourself, your camera is going to, the angles and everything are going to pick up on that, and your nose is going to look bigger than it really is because it's closer to the camera lens. Hopefully you guys like your noses. But just, just in case you don't, just be aware that you see it differently than everybody else. So again, the key to drawing is just layering in whatever it is that you're drawing. Just layer in your graphite, darks and lights. Oh, lots of little wrinkles in his ear. I'm just going to take my kneaded eraser and go in and touch a few spots, few little spots up here in his face, because I want to get those wrinkly sections to kind of pop out. You want to keep that contrast going on. Now I want to even go darker, really grind some things in, but not here, not everywhere, just here and there. So there's just a few little spots that need to go a little darker. I'm going to really grind it in with the tip of my pencil. And I may want to just leave some of that, because if you try to blend it again, it kind of takes out some of that darkness. So you may want to just leave that, a little bit of the pencil, or you could blend it and add some more too. It's kind of up to you to determine what you need. So the last things is those little feathered lines within the shadows of his face. That'll make it look fuzzy, hairy. You don't want to get rid of those lines, because those are the giving you the texture. We're just adding some pressure to it here, making it dark. Still have that ear too big. people really hate hands because you think you have to draw every little line or anything, but you don't really. I'm just going to take my cotton swab and I'm going to pull out some of this graphite that's over here. I'm going to use that in the wrinkles around the hand and the fingers. Just drawing with my cotton swab. Makes it so much easier. He's got a lot of texture in his ear. You can do that with your cotton swab. Just go in there and just dabble it. Just that'll give it that texture. Once you get enough graphite on that cotton swab, try taking some of those little hairs up off him. Just a couple little, that same little feathered line, and you'll get nice soft hair. You can do it on his head, you can do it on his neck, on his knuckles. Your kneaded eraser can do the same thing. I can create little wrinkles by just taking my kneaded eraser and just touching little areas. And create all sorts of little textures with that kneaded eraser. Is that the first monkey you've ever drawn? First chimpanzee, I should say. Is it? Hopefully you feel like you were pretty successful with it. But hopefully it was faster for you. And hopefully you felt like you were a lot more successful than you've ever been. Leave yourself just a little bit of room in the corner somewhere, either the right corner or the left corner, doesn't matter. Or maybe even right there in the crook of his arm. It's a good spot for a signature. You know, because you want to sign it. That's your signature, your copyright, your mark. Thanks for trying this out. Thanks for being patient with me. Thanks for drawing with me. I think I'm going to put my signature right there. It's a good spot for it. And thanks for drawing again. So hopefully today made your life a little bit better by doing art.